Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Leading Minds podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs on a weekly basis, discussing different topics in and around mental health and the challenges that they face and how they overcome them. Today's topic is going to be in and around problem solving. As entrepreneurs, we're going to face challenges within our businesses. We're going to face challenges. And today we really hope to get an insight into how successful entrepreneurs, and in this case, our next guest, overcomes those problems. CEO of the Cow Media Group, one of the most successful performance marketing agencies in the UK. Kash, how are you?
I'm good.
Welcome onto our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So we kind of talked about what we wanted to talk about today, right? Because obviously our relationship is quite deep, right? We're very, very good friends. And you inspire me on a regular basis, you know what I mean, with what you've achieved and what you've done. And I'm hoping that today we can get a real insight into how you solve problems that come up in your business and how you face those challenges, because out of all the people that I know, you do fill me with a lot of inspiration. I have to admit.
You humble me.
And I'm not, you haven't really come from adversity, but the way that you solve your problems really does have some structure to it, which I think is going to be really insightful for everybody. So let's touch on the topic today, right? When we spoke about what we were going to speak about today, you said this phrase, mind management, and that's kind of stuck in my head for the last week.
Yeah.
What is mind management to you?
I think with every person, every challenge that we go through every day, we come across problems. We come across times when we panic and we react to an issue that might be happening, maybe with family, it could be with work, it could be in any environment. But the reality is how do you keep your mind cool? How do you take that problem or that challenge or that issue that you're facing and mentally control that problem? And ultimately, for me, it comes on something that I call mind management. It's the process in my head where I go through how I'm going to deal with that issue and how I control myself. We can quite easily with a challenge, get depressed. We can quite easily get kind of go into within ourselves and almost bottle it up or not deal with it, or maybe deal with it in the wrong way. And that whole process of how you deal with an issue needs to be managed.
Do you know, it's interesting you talk about mindset, because when we're all going to face problems in our business, as entrepreneurs, it's not so much the problems, it's how we deal with those problems. Absolutely. And it all comes back down to mindset.
Absolutely.
In my head, there's the problem solving cycle is exactly the same for an inefficient problem solver and an efficient problem solver. And the only difference between those two people is their mindset, whether they approach the problem with a positive mindset or a negative mindset. Yeah. And I think, linking this back to mental health issues and linking this back to, being in that dark place when you are surrounded by problems, I think you've got to have a positive mindset moving forward to resolve those issues, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something again that I was talking about recently is about surrounding yourself with those positive people, whether it be outside of business or inside of business. Ultimately, I think as individuals, we all carry various traits, various skill sets. And actually it stems from my background probably, and we haven't talked about that yet, maybe we should talk about it in a second. But, I believe that people can be analytical and they can also be quite creative. And I think if you speak to most people and ask them, are you more creative, analytical? They usually will say one or the other. They typically won't say, I'm strong in both areas. And I think that, when you have a problem, you need to create a solution. You need to think that problem through, break it down, understand what is that problem, what is the root of that problem, how can we solve it? You need to analyze it in multiple different facets.
Do you know, you're absolutely spot on. The first part of a problem, or solving a problem, is identifying the problem.
Yeah.
And I like the way you've put that, where you normally have two mindsets. You have a creative mindset and an analytical mindset, and they will both approach the problem in a different way. But you've still got to have the core fundamentals of a positive attitude to be able to identify and analyze that problem and move forward. And I think that identifying the problem and accepting the problem is probably the hardest part, and pretty much what differentiates an inefficient problem solver and an efficient problem solver, right?
Yeah, and I think I think you're absolutely right, but also I think on top of that, it's about who you surround yourself with, because the reality is that you may be an analytical person or may be creative, but then you're missing one of those elements, or not having enough of those elements within your problem solving task. And I'm blessed that I've got very special people around me, and that could be my friends, that could be my family, my business partners, my colleagues at work. And I think when you're sitting down and trying to resolve a problem and you're discussing an issue, everyone has their different skill sets and approaches at looking at that challenge and getting together and basically solving the issue. Now, sometimes there are problems that I don't share.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I've been in difficult places and dark places where I, have a challenge or a problem and I need to work it out myself, and I don't feel comfortable sharing it maybe, or I just feel like I need to do something. I need to deal with it myself. And I have done. And over the years, I've come from a background where, I have quite a simple family. I've amazing parents who've worked, really hard all their life to bring us up. We're 4 siblings, and my parents are very hand to mouth. I studied a lot when I was young. I was made to study huge amounts when I was, I didn't really have summer holidays. I was just studying.
Yeah.
And actually, I almost resented my family for that, for making me not enjoy myself, not go on, different, places abroad, but we couldn't afford it. And, my family saw very much education as a source to kind of success ultimately, and getting a good job. And
I think there's a cultural aspect there.
Yeah,
as
well,
well,
that's Asian
right?
culture. Exactly.
Asian culture.
Go and be an engineer, son.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
Right.
became an engineer.
Doctor, pharmacist. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's instilled into us culturally from day one.
Yeah.
Do you think that because you described the analytical approach and the creative approach. Now you're an anomaly. You're a hybrid of both, though. I mean, you'd agree with that, right? You're a hybrid of both. Do you think that background, being brought up with those kind of that cultural push on education made you that kind of a problem solver, where you've got the analytical side and the creative side of it?
I don't know, actually. Maybe. I'm an engineer, so and engineers are very technical and also very creative as well at the same time. I think that's part and parcel of things. When I went to university, I did aeronautical engineering. But when over the years of me, studying, when I went to uni, I rebelled and, partied too hard and I thought I've had enough of studying.
Yeah.
But actually, we finished uni and I went on holiday with some of the guys to I think it was either Cancun or one of the places we were away for a while, and actually we were took our shisha with us at the time. We were smoking shisha, and one of the guys around the pool basically picked up the shisha from the top or the metal area, and the glass dropped to the floor, smashed all over the pool basically, and we were like, day one, where's the shisha? It's broken.
Yeah.
So actually I ended up, I don't know, me being me, just ended up getting some Coca-Cola bottles and whatever it was, and basically created a base out the shisha and fixed it and started using it. It was great. And my friends from uni actually call me the mechanic now.
The mechanic, not Christian Bale.
Not Christian Bale. Not quite there. Not quite there. But they call me the mechanic, and they take the peanuts out of me, right, for being like that. But I've just been naturally a problem-solving person. I've just thought to myself, how can I fix that issue? Look at that problem. What can I solve it with? What if it'd be ideal if we could create this? Oh, I can create that. Let's get a bottle and let's cut it and let's do whatever. And I look at life not as a problem, but I look at life, in a way that there are challenges all the time.
Yeah.
And we need to identify what causes those challenges, so that if we don't want them again moving forward, how do we avoid that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, all of our podcasts and everything that we do is aimed around people that are suffering from mental health issues, and especially towards entrepreneurs. And it's very easy as an entrepreneur to be dragged down by the issues and the problems that we face on a day-to-day basis, because you're always in a constant state of flux. Always. Now, when you are in that situation, you've really got to take a step back and be positive about what's happening. A problem, in my estimation, is a solution waiting to be found. Now, when you turn around and you say, well, look, I look at life as problems, and I think what you mean is you look at life as small problems waiting to be solved, right? So you're always looking for the solution. And again, I think this comes back to what I was saying earlier with inefficient and efficient problem solvers. The cycle is exactly the same. You identify, you analyze, you come up with the solution, you implement the solution.
Yeah.
But it's that first 2 points where you then get the differentiation between a good problem solver and a poor problem solver. A poor problem solver will get to the identification stage after a lot of stress, wanting to get to that point of being able to understand they have a problem in the first instance. Then moving from that to analyze the problem, they're going to be sitting there thinking, oh shit, I've got this problem. Oh my God. But an efficient problem solver, which is what I would class you as, would look at the problem and say, okay, hands up, let me accept this. I accept this for what it is. And then I need to move forward to try and find a solution. We can always sit there and think, what's the worst that can happen? But actually your mindset is, what's the best that can happen?
Yeah. And I think you touched on some really important points there. One of them being stress. And we'll come back to that in a second. For me, when I look at a problem, I always believe that there's always a solution to everything.
Yeah.
I think if there is something that's out of your control, I've always been told don't worry about it as much because you can't do anything about it.
You can't do
right?
anything. Absolutely.
So don't eat yourself up and affect your mental health by worrying about that too much. Whereas when there's things that are in your control, work the problem, work to understand that. But I think when it comes to efficient and inefficiency, I think one of the fundamental problems is stress, and that is your mental state of mind. And if you go into a problem highly stressed, you're going to become an inefficient problem solver. And actually, over the years, I think my background is working for a very large global agency. I came in there from an automotive background. When I finished uni, I went into automotive. I love cars, and I've always wished to own supercars and whatever it is. And I landed a job in a media agency,
which is where we met.
Which is where we met 10 odd years ago.
Yeah.
And it was the first time for me where, and I talk about the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper when he takes that pill and he opens his mind a lot. And for me, that was my limitless moment. I came into a role working in automotive where it's a very, once you get into automotive, anyone that listens to this and is in the automotive industry will completely resonate with this. They'll say, well, once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it. But I loved it. I just love cars.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I joined this agency where we met, and it was the first time in my life someone said you can earn uncapped income. And I'd never been in business before, never had a business before. No one taught me to go and do this, son, or go and do this job, or go into banking, get into finance. You can earn lots of money there. It was quite an old mentality for my family in terms of like, go and get a job, son, and just be loyal.
Security,
right?
Security.
Old school mentality.
Yeah,
absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
right.
And so when I thrived in this environment, and I had the largest portfolios in the world. I changed my life financially. I went from earning what I was earning a year to earning in a month, and I loved it. Yeah. I was like a sponge. I went into businesses and I learned, and I learned so much from them. But also, what came with that was the stress.
Yeah.
Because when you're at the top, people want you to fail.
Yeah,
right?
they do. That's right. Yeah.
Your management are expecting you to deliver a certain amount of revenue in a certain month and a certain year because they've got targets to hit, and they look at you as their kind of shining knight that's going to deliver all the numbers.
An example
to lead from and what have you. And there's loads of stress, whether it be clients giving stress, whether it be stress of losing clients and churning them. And over the years, you almost get used to the stress. It becomes a normal state of mind.
Absolutely. Now, we touched on this on episode 2, where we were talking about this particular working environment, and we were talking about how it was quite a toxic environment. But you excelled. You were number one, and as you say, an example, right? But it's interesting because that was actually your first experience of being within that kind of environment, sales environment, right? Do you think, coming back to problems and problem solving, because obviously working in that environment, we were dealing with problems every single day. I don't think there was a day where we didn't have a problem that we had to resolve, because obviously, especially with your portfolio of clients, it was just a barrage of requests, problems, issues,
challenges
right?
all the time.
Do you think that contributed then to almost made you not immune is the wrong word, but almost put you into that mindset of, okay, here's another problem, I know what I need to do here, I know how to resolve this, and kind of carried that forward into your business right now?
100%. I mean, I haven't told you the story actually, but at one point I took the family to Egypt.
Yeah.
And I got on the plane, and I was sitting on the plane, and I was disconnected, no internet. I was not online. Yeah. And I had anxiety.
Really?
I actually felt like I was having heart pains.
Wow.
I felt really weird. Because I was going 100 miles an hour at work all the time. Like literally, you don't stop working. You know what it was like, right? You earn a lot of money and you under a lot of pressure. And because I was earning a lot, and I had never had that opportunity to do that, and I come from quite simple backgrounds where I was quite ambitious, and I've always wanted great things in life, but it's quite difficult to achieve them. No one gives you a blueprint and says, "Son, here you go and do it."
Exactly.
So I was on this plane, and I said to my wife, and I said, I think I've got heart problems. She goes, "Don't be silly. You're young and fit." And I was like, "Well, no, I don't think I think I've got problems." And later, I actually identified that it was because I was going 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I just stopped. It's like I hit a brick wall, and all of a sudden I'm switched off, and it just felt, and my body couldn't deal with it. And it's almost like, over the years of that high pressure environment, that your body just does become almost used to the stress.
Conditioning.
And it conditions your brain.
It's conditioning, yeah.
And I had to learn, because if I didn't, at the size of where I was going, with the size of the portfolio that I had, and the amount of pressure that was put upon me by the company, if I hadn't managed my mind or started to think, how am I going to deal with these problems, and then actually getting the confidence that I can deal with them, because after a period of time you think, you can throw anything at me now, right? I can deal with it. I've been there, done it. I've been through so many different scenarios now that I don't stress as much. So my mindset is efficient and not inefficient as a result a lot of the time. And I allow myself to, I take the challenges on, and I look at them and I think, I can deal with it.
So where do you think that comes from, now having a structured approach, mind management as we're calling it, a structured approach to solving your problems, and what does that actually look like if you break it down?
Okay. I think there's multiple parts here, but one of them is external factors. So things like your support circle, your support network. That being my business partner, for example, who is also one of my best friends, and we have a very similar mindset, but also we're different in many ways too. And being able to sound something off somebody and discuss that, and my friends too, and what have you, is massive. It's a massive part of, it can be, business can be very lonely. You can be very, you can be on your own, and you can,
in your own mind, in your own head. Yeah.
And I believe that entrepreneurs need to have, a multifaceted approach. They need to have multiple skill sets. You can be a a carpenter that's really good at making wardrobes, but then if you go and set up your own business, that person may not know how to generate revenue, or may not know how to do accounting or HR, and so many other areas of business, and ultimately it becomes quite daunting, and there's nowhere really to go.
No.
So how do I fix this? Where's the solution?
Yeah.
And I think that's where things like therapy and training and development can help someone. But for me, when I look at mind management, I typically start with trying to understand why the problem happened in the first place. I'm quite a why guy.
Yeah.
Why did it happen? What caused it? Because I want to make sure that if it is a problem, and it probably is, if I'm worried about it, then I don't want it to happen again. Then I want to understand what the problem is. Break that problem down. Is it me? Is it the business? Is it our process? Is it an external company that we've used that's caused this? What is it exactly that this issue has been, has come from? And ultimately, what does the issue want to see to resolve it?
Yeah.
Right. And then once you know what you want to see, what we call the new reality, what is that new reality look like?
What is the outcome, basically? What is the outcome
right?
you want to achieve? Yeah.
And then how do you get there?
Yeah.
What process you have to put in place? What steps do I need to do? What conversations do I need to have to get to a stage where we achieve that?
Do you know, there's obviously a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are one-man bands, right? The way that you've described that whole process is having a network around you and pulling those people in to help you. Now, they don't necessarily need to be part of your business.
No.
They can be your extended network, and people that you can reach out to for help and advice. A lot of people can get stuck in, you nailed it with the whole carpenter example, where, you're good at what you do, but you're not necessarily a business person. You might be passionate about the products and services that you offer or that you provide. You're not necessarily supposed to have all the answers. Nobody goes into business with a book saying, right, you're great at carpentry, here's your book to run a business. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely.
I think people need to feel confident and comfortable to be able to reach out to their extended network if there are voids within their skill set. However, it comes back to analyzing what those voids are in the first instance, right?
Yes. And actually, we do a lot of work in healthcare, as you know.
Yeah.
And a typical example of all of this is a dentist.
Yeah.
Dentists often they'll go to medical school, they'll learn to become dentists, they'll go and work at a dental practice for a few years. And then ultimately it gets to a stage where a lot of them will want to set up their own practice.
Yeah.
But they've spent most of their time either learning about dentistry or practicing dentistry within a clinical room.
Yeah. They're dentists. They haven't understood business.
Yeah. And actually dentistry is one of those industries where I think there are quite a lot of consultants and people out there supporting, training to, learn to be entrepreneurs. And they have some of that support, but I think a lot of the marketplace doesn't have it.
No, it doesn't. So let's say, for example, if you are in that situation where you're facing your problems on your own, for me, and I'll get your opinion on it as well, I think, you've really got to take a step back and analyze your business. Your skills are what are getting you forward, right?
Yeah.
And what are allowing you to generate revenue and excel. You're not an accountant. You're not a lawyer. You're not a salesperson, really. Maybe not. You might have the capability. And so many different facets within a business. My own personal opinion is we live in such an interconnected society right now. There must be some positives because of that interconnected society that you should feel comfortable to reach out. And it's okay to feel like, you know what? I don't know this. There's no shame in that.
100%.
There's no shame in that. To be able to reach out to people and say, you know what? I need your advice.
Yeah. And actually the opposite applies. If you don't reach out, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
Because in my, I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by people that I've learned from. When I mentioned that limitless moment, that moment for me was being plugged into so many different businesses over so many years that I learned about business. That was my training,
Yeah.
if you call it that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And, you know, and I've taken all that I've learned in all those years and then put them into my own organization, and, you know, we've thrived. Don't get me wrong, I still make mistakes. We're human beings, and I always will be learning, and I always will be making mistakes still, right?
But there's nothing wrong with that.
But there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
And then I know as long as I learn from the mistakes, it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
It's a learn, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think today, a lot of entrepreneurs today, they feel like they're burdened to be able to deal with it themselves.
Yeah.
I also think there's a financial aspect of it as well, because they worry about all the cost of this and the cost of that. But actually, training isn't as expensive as some people think it could be.
Or what the end result could be without that knowledge.
And, you know, exactly that. 50% of businesses nowadays fail in the first year or something like that. 80% in the first 5 years and 80% of those in the next 5 years. Ultimately, you know, having that investment into understanding the various parts of business in a bit more detail will actually allow them to be more successful.
It allows them to be a lot more productive.
100%.
Knowledge, you know, there's the old cliche, knowledge is power. But actually, in business, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
We're not expected to know everything. We're not expected to know everything. You know, if you're successful in business, I said this a couple of podcasts ago, where if you've created a product or service, you've taken it to market and you've sold it, that in itself is such a massive achievement.
Yeah.
However, moving on from that now, you're going to be burdened with issues, you know, that are going to affect you and that are going to affect your mental health. And how to overcome them is to reach out and ask for help or look at your network and see what you can be provided with the skills and knowledge that you have. I also think when you get to a point where you have a problem, visualization is extremely important.
Yeah, and I think this comes down to entrepreneurs. I mean, ultimately, if you think about an entrepreneur and what an entrepreneur is, they're visionaries.
Yeah.
They're people that can see something or a business in the future and take it to market and create that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there is a mindset that some entrepreneurs lack that vision sometimes. They're quite technical people where they've come, for example, a carpentry and they set up their own carpentry firm, but actually do they have the vision and the entrepreneurism to be able to go out there and, you know, build something that's beyond maybe what their mindset is, what their capability is. But I think, and that's where you bring in the people.
Yeah.
That's where you bring the support network. Now, whether you bring in someone into the business and you employ the right kind of people, or you reach out with your network, or you get training and develop yourself, but you need to do something.
Yeah.
Because if you rest on your laurels, you will fail.
And if you break that down right to an individual problem and solving an individual problem within the business, I think how visualization is linked back to that is it's very easy to get caught up in a negative mindset. Let's you know, put that out there. We all, no matter how successful, I mean, me and Courtney were talking about how our perceptions of an entrepreneur are £1 million and a Ferrari and whatever. But the reality is, you know, we all can very, very easily fall into a negative mindset, regardless of where our levels are, right? Each individual problem, the way we approach it, where visualization is important, is a negative mindset will turn around and say to us, shit, I've got a problem. I'm not going to be able to solve this. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to get... What you're visualizing then is a negative outcome. But if you turn that visualization into a positive, right, I've visualized this problem that I have turning out like this, all of a sudden, and I'm a real big believer of how powerful the mind is and where it can take you. So visualization, where you're visualizing it in a positive manner, that, right, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to solve this issue. Let me analyze this problem. Let me accept I've got a problem. Let me analyze it and come up with a solution. I think even when you break it down into the small elements, into smaller problems, visualization is extremely important. Extremely important when you're dealing on a day-to-day. As entrepreneurs, we might have people around us, and to solve problems, we need to have access to a network. We need to have access to people around us. But if we ourselves don't have a positive outlook or a positive visualization, how are we going to inspire people to assist and resolve those problems? Do you know what I mean?
And actually, you brought up quite a valid point there, Shez, in terms of, as a leader within the business, you can't show weakness to your staff.
Yeah.
You can't show that, we're going through a tough patch, guys. If you start going into that cocoon of depression, or, you show that you're struggling, it's not going to, bode well for your business and impact the people in the staff. They will also be negative. Yeah. So, you really have that additional pressure on you, that you need to make sure that, you're showing that positive outlook, and actually be positive about it, and deliver the results and show that you can get through it, because it will show them, it will inspire them to be positive thinking, right? That, as an organization, as a marketing organization, we have challenges all the time. People come to us with a product that we think that isn't actually going to succeed. Our way of resolving it is being very honest and open with the client, and actually resolving almost their business now, and telling them how to do it and how to adapt their product to succeed. Yeah. Not saying, yes, sir, we'll take it to market, because we know that's going to, when it goes to market, we're going to see a problem.
Well, you're not putting square pegs in round holes, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So we it comes down to, everyone in your environment, whether it be your business partner, whether it be your staff, whether it be a family, having a positive attitude. Surround yourself with the right kind of people. It's always the case, right? You're the average of the people you spend most of your time with. And I think in today's world, people tend to either try to keep their problems to themselves and not share them. And I think that's also a problem in its own. Or sometimes they have the wrong people around them. Yeah. And so, that can quite easily put them into a negative mindset and, quite easily go into depression.
So it's very important to analyze what you have around you and who you have around you. Now, you touched on something which is really, really important, actually. You said, if as entrepreneurs we're going through a negative period, that can't be presented in that manner to staff. Yeah. So let's talk about that, because that is really important, right? Yeah. That's really important. Have you faced that kind of a challenge, and how have you overcome that?
Constantly. Look, COVID over the last year or so has been brutal for us. We are a marketing organization that markets businesses. If businesses can't operate, they're not going to market, right? It's chicken and egg, pretty simple. And so we have lost huge amounts of revenue in the beginning of the pandemic. Luckily, we've adapted, and we've made changes within the business as well, and overcome those problems. But you cannot show that weakness to your staff. You probably will end up having half of them leave and say, this company's going down. We're not going down with it, so we want to leave. That's also another challenge. But, if you back yourself and you really believe that you have the ability, to believe in the business and the model that you're in, and you think that you know there's success there, but also if you actually believe in what you have as your skill set, that you can deal with this problem, you can have the right mindset, that you can achieve the right result off the back of it, then it becomes lesser of a challenge to show a positive mindset to your staff, because you are. Yeah. And I think over the years, being in difficult situations has trained me and conditioned my mind to, like I said, not think of anything as a problem anymore. I think of things as challenges that will be resolved. Yeah. I will resolve them one way or another. I have the skill set to do that, and the people around me to do that. And if they're out of my control, I can't do much about that. So I need to just let those ones slide.
So a problem is basically a solution waiting to happen.
Exactly.
Right. It's as simple as that. So when you look at entrepreneurs around you, because obviously you're dealing with businesses on a daily basis, right? Yeah. You're probably seeing the whole spectrum of businesses and issues and problems. Yeah. What kind of issues are you seeing that are a common theme when it comes to businesses and their problems and the way that they're trying to solve their issues?
I think a lot of businesses tend to make knee-jerk reactions quite a lot. I think they're quite aggressive in some of the knee-jerks, whether it's removing people, stopping spend, changing strategy, changing tact. And I think you need to be dynamic in this marketplace, absolutely. But I feel that people don't work the problem to resolve it. They just react and think it's the solution, and it's not.
Yeah, that's right.
And, we've got a lot of businesses that we work with that are, a lot of our businesses are kind of small, medium kind of style businesses. We work with large organizations too. And then on the flip side, some of the large organizations are just too slow to move. They're just dinosaurs still.
Yeah.
There's too much red tape, and they just believe in what they have, and then they don't adapt fast enough. So I think the biggest asset a business can have today is being fast moving and dynamic.
Yeah.
But being able to come up with solutions that are genuine solutions to a problem and not brushing things under the carpet and trying to ignore them.
Yeah.
Whether you're a big business, move faster. Or you're a small business, don't do too many knee jerks, work the problem through and come up with the right solution.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I mean, we've touched a few times today about how we need to surround ourselves with the right people, because that's ultimately what it comes down to, exactly what you just said, right? Is having that resource around you to be able to either move fast or not to make knee-jerk reactions in business. When it comes to your mindset of let's go further on the problem solving cycle. So we've talked about identifying, we talked about analyzing, execution.
Yeah.
Right. At that point of execution, how do you fulfill that? How do you put that in place?
I think it comes down to understanding first of all the type of problem, because there'll be different ways of executing the solution. I also, it's important to identify that your solution may well be ongoing.
Yeah.
It could be something that needs to be adapted ongoing. It's not necessarily just a one fix, plug the hole and it's plugged, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to make sure that whoever is executing it is the right person.
Yeah.
Because if you put the wrong person executing a problem, you're going to inherit another problem, and then or the original problem could get even worse. So again, it comes down to analyzing and looking at the solution that you've created, and this is the whole analysis and creativity part of things coming together, and then making sure you put things in place to either stop that from happening again, and also seeing it through.
I think a lot of business owners tend to get into a bubble, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's the same with mental health as well, right? We all tend to sit there and think that we're the only ones suffering with this, we're the only ones that are going through it, and you kind of, you kind of create this mindset where you internalize everything, right? But I think it's fair to say that the challenges that we face as business owners and the challenges that we face as entrepreneurs, we're all going to come across those issues. I don't think there's going to be any issue that anybody can turn around and say, I'm dealing with this on my own. There's nobody else going through this. And it's a shame that we don't have networks available to be able to share information, to be able to say, right, you know what, I went through this issue and this is how I resolved it, and this is the kind of people that I pulled in, and this is where my gaps and voids were. What kind of, I suppose, advice would you give to people that are internalizing their issues and thinking that they're the only ones that are going through it?
Yeah. I think there's so many different things to think about here, but initially a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel ashamed. They feel shy and they feel ashamed of admitting that they have challenges.
That's right.
And being, they're almost like, oh, what's everyone going to think about me?
Yeah.
And then also they worry about if they are, let's say, for example, you set up a new business and, you're telling your friends and your family about it, and word of mouth is really important to you and you're getting business. But then you start sharing that you're having problems.
Yeah.
Do you think your friends and family are going to want to refer you anymore?
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit, I shouldn't
That's
refer
right.
him. He might go
That's
bust
right.
next week.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just put one of my mates in contact with him, and they're struggling.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
So I think the perception of what people are going to think, and being ashamed and being shy and is one element of it. I think also people don't know where to go to. I think people also haven't identified what part of their business is causing these issues. I'm getting a lot of stress. I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping. I'm working long hours. My business is not making the money it should be making, but I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything that I was doing at XYZ carpentry firm, and it's not working.
Yeah.
What is it that I'm missing? And, you need to be a marketing person. You need to be a salesperson. You need to be the accountant and the admin side of things can be dealt with professionals. But all the other elements of being an entrepreneur and taking a business to market, how do you identify which one does you're doing wrong? Who's coming in there and saying to you, that's not right and that's not right and you need to fix this? And actually, one of the reasons why I think, quite a lot of my organization is good at problem solving is because by nature of being a performance marketing agency, our job is to deliver performance for our clients in terms of their marketing spend. So we have problems every day.
Yeah.
They come to us and say, Kash, this isn't working. My company's not working. My marketing's not working. What is going wrong? And over the years and years of experience and thousands of businesses we've dealt with, we can look at it and identify very quickly, this is the problem. This is what you need to resolve. You need to change your business model. Your shipping is too expensive or whatever it is. We can identify that. Whereas if you're an entrepreneur who's just set up your business 2 weeks ago, or 2 years ago, and you're still on your own and your carpentry firm is still going on, who is telling you and how are you identifying these things?
Or are you?
Or are you identifying? You're just saying I'm stressed out.
That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? Is are you identifying where your business is at? And are you identifying the issues and challenges that you've got? And the other thing that you touched on, which I find really interesting, is that fear of failure. Right? Now, we've all been there, right? We've all been there. Yeah. That fear of failure of, okay, I'm facing my first few challenges now. What are people going to think of me because I've built up this whole facade? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. And that has its own stigma attached to it. How am I going to be able to reach out? And to be honest, that is a mindset that if anybody's thinking that, you got to drop it. You got to drop it because, look, people fail.
Yeah,
right?
They do.
But you can't be ashamed of failure before it's even happened, right? And to be able to analyze your situation, like you were talking about, we're giving the whole carpentry example has been a theme throughout the whole podcast, right?
We could change it if you want.
No, we'll stick with the carpentry, right? But if they've been running for a year, 2 years, and they still haven't analyzed, what issues they could be facing or even how to make themselves more productive. I think it's so important to just let go of that let go of those negative connotations that you have in and around what other people think. Your business is your business. It's your baby. You got to take it forward. And I think it's really important for people to say, you know what? I'm going to let go of this negative association that I have with what other people are going to be thinking about me. Let me look at my business. Let me look at where I'm going right, what I'm doing wrong, and let me call in the support to be able to resolve my issues and allow my business to move forward. I think that's really, really important because it has a contribution towards a negative mindset, which ultimately leads to poor mental health.
But it's so hard. To actually, once you set up a business, people are very proud of what they've done and what they've achieved. They share it with their friends and their family. You might advertise online and do whatever you need to do, right, to try and drive in revenue. For you to all of a sudden stop thinking what other people think about your business, it's so hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. And actually, I think that's one way of doing it. Stop thinking what people think, but actually to change what you're doing to even have a neutral viewpoint, not a positive, not a negative, but a neutral viewpoint is good enough actually. And I think with a lot of entrepreneurs today, when they face, I think entrepreneurs today think that having problems in business is normal. They think it's very standard behavior for them to have lots of challenges and be stressful in their first few years of business. But actually, that shouldn't be the way it is, because if you were trained and you understand the right elements of business that you need to know to make your business succeed, it should be a journey that has challenges always, and there will be difficult times, but actually it's pleasant a lot of the time too.
It should be. You should be. We were talking earlier on about success, and we talked about how success is subjective, right? But you're so right in what you say, in that we're programmed to think that it should be problem, challenge, and one day I'll lift my head up and it'll all be great.
Yeah.
But you've got to enjoy the journey, right? You've got to be able to enjoy the journey and take the successes that you do have and own them.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and this again, how this links back to problem solving is approaching your problems with a positive mindset. If you're enjoying the journey, you're gonna have a positive mindset about any challenge that may come up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But you've got to have the right skill sets to deal with the
Yeah.
problem, because positive mindset is half the problem solved, right? If you think in a positive way, you'll try and work out the issues and trying to get them resolved. But if you haven't got that analytical side and the creative side, or the people that are helping you to bring those elements to play, it's quite difficult to get the problem resolved in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I think, again, from my experience in what I've been doing and my team have been doing over the number of years where we have been plugged into businesses and learnt from them, we problem solve from experience.
Yeah.
When you're an entrepreneur who is, first business, their experience has been technically working on something, whether you are a carpenter or you are a dentist or whatever you are. You've not had that experience of resolving those types of problems before, and the outcomes that are going to be achieved off the back of those problems that you're going to, you get the way you're going to resolve them. And so where do you go?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Where's the resource?
Yeah.
Right? Who says, right, here we go, these are the challenges you're going to have?
Yeah.
Because the challenges can be endless and they will be ongoing.
Yeah.
It's tough, and I think that's where you really need to be not afraid to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we talk about, we talked about people's individual mental health journeys, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff to help people to allow them to take that first step. There's so many entry points when you overcome to overcome those challenges. When we talk about health and fitness and we talk about training and stuff like that, but if you link that back to business, you've got to take the first step forward.
100%.
Nobody's going to do it for you. Yeah. You've got to be able to accept and identify and be able to then take that step forward. And I think it's very, very important for people to understand that, there is your fairy godmother isn't going to come along with a magic wand and say, right, there you go, there's your pumpkin, pumpkin turn into a coach and off you go, right? Ain't going to happen. Yeah. So I think negative mindsets, I mean, there's going to be people out there that are struggling with problems and issues right now. And look, there are problems and issues that you can't control. And if you can't control them, then you need to put them to one side. You have to put them to one side, because there's nothing that you're going to do that is going to impact that the outcome of that problem. Yeah. Right.
But you might be able to have impacted it happening in the first place.
That's right. But if you can look at things retrospectively and change them moving forward.
Moving forward, absolutely.
But in the present moment, as you stand right now, that issue isn't. If you can't impact it, it needs to be put to one side.
Yeah.
If you can impact it, and you can impact that issue, then you need to be pushing forward with a positive mindset and saying, right, okay, you know what? I'm really going to truck on through and focus, visualize on what you want to achieve, what you want the outcome to be, and how you want things to progress. Now, coming back to your journey and the way that you're doing things in and around your business, you've obviously got a very successful performance marketing agency, Cal Media Group. Coming from the environment that we worked in, right?
Yeah.
And again, we've touched on it. We've touched on the toxicity of it. We've touched on the having to face the problems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What have you done to combat your staff and people that are working for you to not have to experience what we experienced within that environment?
It's a good question. I think a lot of this comes down to our 4 pillars of performance marketing. I truly believe that, the data-driven part that everyone talks about in marketing is great. And then obviously you have a creative part, but you have a strategic and a consultative part of that, of which really truly brings together and gives you the best performance marketing. And a lot of that stems from having business experience,
Yeah.
understanding business. And we do a lot of training at Cal Media Group with our staff. I used to train the team weekly on just business training.
Yeah.
And, the guys understand business, understand commercial elements of a company where they combine, and then obviously understand the industry and what have you as well, but bring that all together to be able to give our clients success, which then automatically puts less pressure on them.
Yeah.
Gives them, less of a worrying outset every day, but more of a, we know how to handle it.
Yeah.
We know how to deal with that. We can, we can resolve your issue. We know how to take it to market. We've done it before, got the t-shirt, we've got the experience. I understand your business. I understand what you're going through. I understand the challenges that you're actually saying, I don't know what to do here. We've got the answers. And I think by setting up the team and the people, with the right type of training and skill sets, allow them to approach a problem in the right manner, like we're talking about today. And that all of a sudden lifts this massive, cloud of stress above the business immediately.
Yeah, it just relieves. It's like a burden taken off, right?
Because the guys are prepared,
because you're giving them the skills and the
tools.
knowledge and the tools to be able to move forward.
Absolutely.
So it's fundamentally what we said right at the beginning, this creative and analytical outlook to problem solving is coursing through the veins of the whole business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The mind management is there.
Yeah.
Everyone can manage the problem and the solution because they have the resources around them. If someone wants to come to me and says, Kash, I've got a problem, this client is having this issue, I've suggested this, but actually I think, I need your expertise in this area. We sit down together, we collaborate, and then we come up with the solution.
Yeah.
But everyone is confident that whatever happens, every client that comes to us that has a challenge, we are equipped to provide them with the best advice to resolve the issue. And because they're going in with that positive mental attitude, the stress is felt less.
Yeah. So literally what you're doing then is you're creating almost a formula.
Culture.
Culture's a better word.
Yeah.
Culture within the business of problem solving right from the offset. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on to discuss this topic, right? Because the way that the way that you implement your problem solving it is extremely beneficial, especially within your business when you're talking to businesses. And the way that it courses through, like I said, the veins of the business, you've literally created this culture of problem solving right down to your salesperson when they pick up the phone, right? Yep. So let's say, for example, we've got people out there that are one-man bands, right? Let's say, for example, they don't have the resource or they don't have the means to create a culture.
Yeah.
Right? What does that person right now with problems on their table need to do? What's the first step that they need to take?
So I think there's one thing in a business that we all know that, money can't really buy the experience that you have hands-on. Yeah. Things that we've been through over the years, you can't just buy that anywhere. But what you can do is you can get a mentor.
Yeah.
Everyone will know someone within an organization that they may look up to who's had that experience. Yeah. Lean on that person. Yeah. Take guidance. That could be a friend. That could be someone that you might pay for this service as well. Get training. Surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Surround yourself with entrepreneurs maybe who might be a few more years ahead of you that have been through these problems themselves and can talk of experience. But ultimately, it's about this is your network what we're creating, right? This is your support network that you're creating, whether it be a mentor, whether it be paid training courses, whether it be bringing someone into your business as an employee or a partner that has the skill set that maybe you don't. But it's aligning yourself to the right type of mentality, the right type of experience with mind management or problem solving that's going to allow you to be able to resolve your own issues and develop further.
We talked about, before we came on, we talked about how a majority of people that do set up their own businesses come from an area where they've got experience within that product or service, and they think that they can go and either do it on their own because they want a better working environment, or they can do it better, right? Coming back to what you've said, I think there's an argument that it's very important within your business to get a pen and a paper and literally look at your network and how you can increase your network, because that could have a massive bearing on you filling those voids where you've taken this product or service that you're really good at, built a business out of it, but you're not a business person, to literally sit there and say, right, okay, who can I reach out to?
Yeah.
Who can I reach out to? Who can I have a conversation with you? With who? What do I want my network to look like? I mean, that's a conversation that I've never heard before. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'll give you a live example. So, Cal Media Group, KAU, it stands for Cash Abs One, right? We're the three founders of the business. When I was thinking of launching the media agency, originally I was going to do this on my own. Now, my skill sets obviously lie within marketing and within sales and what have you. Obviously, business experience, lots of the businesses, but I have never had the operational side there before. I've never had the exposure to the technology piece of an agency. So I, looked at two of my best friends, one being an operational person working in finance for a long time, one being a technology guy, entrepreneur, being huge in technology. And, we equally set up the business together. Now, people might say, well, Kash, you gave away percentage of the business, right? You've given away your equal shareholders. But we equally add value to have a smaller piece of a much larger organization than having 100% of a solo.
So let me ask you a question. And be honest.
Yeah.
Would you have achieved what you've achieved right now without creating that mini network to be able to then set up your business?
Unlikely, maybe would have been the same size in a longer period of time. Who knows? The reality is that I have two very good partners in business that I trust explicitly, that are there to support me when I need them, and I'm there to support them. We bounce off each other. We know we may even have an argument. Rarely we may have an argument, but we know this is business, and you got to work things through. And it's a marriage, right? You got to work it. You got to make it work. And actually, there's great synergy between us, and that is my support network. I'm like-minded, very intelligent individuals, but also, outside of those two guys, I have other people within the business that are great at what they do.
Yeah.
Great people, intelligent, able to, even if you just go and have a coffee with them, sometimes you can be inspired by them, and they can teach you something and help you and guide you and tell you, sometimes I might not see things on the floor happening within the business because I'm, not exposed to those things, and I need to know what's really going on.
In essence, you've created, is exactly what we've just kind of said in a more practical way. You've created that network.
Yeah.
You've surrounded yourself with people to be able to push forward and learn from, right?
Yeah.
Because we can all sit here, everybody can sit down and say, I'm not the total product here. I'm not, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And being able to surround yourself with people, I think, is extremely important. Extremely important. Kash, one of the other reasons why I wanted you to come on was we had a conversation about the perception of an entrepreneur, and I wanted to touch on that really quickly because that word entrepreneur is bandied about a lot more now than it ever has been before. Do you think that's because a lot more people are setting up businesses and taking their products and services to market because of the environment that we're in? Or do you think that it's become a phrase synonymous only for success?
I think people like the idea of being an entrepreneur. I think they think it's a cool word to use, and it's cool to tell I'm an entrepreneur. I set a lot of businesses up. I think there's that kind of like social element to it as well. But actually today, I believe a lot of businesses are actually lacking entrepreneurs. Yeah. I think a business has people setting it up and are running it, But actually, the entrepreneur isn't an entrepreneur. They are maybe a technical person that is, come from a technical background, carving wood, and then set up their own organization. But actually what they're doing is carving wood in their own organization. Yeah. So they're working for themselves, but doing the same job that they were doing before. But now they're working longer hours, and they're trying to bring in revenue, and they're stressing about the P&L and who's going to pay the rent and all the rest of it. So actually, are they an entrepreneur, or are they just working in an environment that they are now stressed out owning? Yeah. But actually the business isn't growing or going anywhere else. Yeah. And I think our background coming as consultants working within the media industry, we were plugged into many businesses. Yeah. We learned and we were able to become consultative and understand business.
Kind of a top-down view onto everything. Yeah.
And so we were able to take those transferable skills in setting up our own business. So truly being entrepreneurs, having a vision, and then be able to bring all those elements in, it was a really good foundation for success. I think a lot of businesses today, whether they are a carpenter today and they go and set their own organization, they don't see the entrepreneur vision. The entrepreneurs are visionaries. They also see a future of where they're going to take that organization. But actually, these people, a lot of them, sometimes are just working for someone, so I can do this better myself, and go and set it up themselves. And all they're doing now is doing the same job in that same thing, and not really setting up an own organization, and then stressing about it, right? So I think in today's world, you need to have that technical person there. You need to have the entrepreneur there as well. You need to have maybe the technical person in my business might be Osman, as a technical person, right? He's a CTO of the business. You need to have that managerial, operational person. That's Abs, right? As a COO of the business. And then you got to have the sales and the marketing side and various other bits and the entrepreneurial. And we're all entrepreneurs and we'll have the vision as well. But you got to have that balance.
You've got to have balance. Yeah, I totally agree with you. You've got to have balance. I've always said, look, even a small business owner is an entrepreneur in my eyes. Yeah. But you've got to be able to believe in what you're doing and have a vision.
Yes.
You can't just be, you've nailed it. You can't just be doing the same job that you were doing before, but you're doing it with all the pressures for yourself. You've got to be, I think, in this country and especially, when I look around people around me, when they've set up their businesses, they haven't just gone and copy and pasted. They've gone, you're an example of that, is to say, right, do you know what? I can really do something different here.
Yeah.
I can really push the boundaries here. I can really try and create something that was better than what I've experienced. Yeah. And I think, you know what, there's no harm in, I always say, look, adjust, adapt, evolve. Yeah. You need to be constantly analyzing what you're doing. You need to be constantly looking at your motivations for why you're doing what you're doing. And you've got to, one of the biggest takes from today is to be able to surround yourself with people that allow you to overcome those issues and challenges for you to become a visionary.
Yeah.
You know Absolutely. What I mean? Kash, listen, thank you so much for coming on today. Absolutely appreciate your time and your insight. I mean, in conclusion, I think we've covered some kind of more of the mindset aspects of problem solving, because like we said right at the beginning, it is exactly the same for an inefficient problem solver and an efficient problem solver. You're going to follow the same cycle. But in conclusion, it's about having vision, having the network, having the resource, and not being afraid to reach out to ask for help. So thank you, man. I've enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
I've enjoyed it. That's episode 5 of the Leading Minds podcast. We hope that content has resonated with you, and that you're able to take away some content from that for you to be able to move forward and resolve your own issues. Remember, you aren't on your own. Other people are going through exactly the same issues that you guys are facing, and it's good to find out what people are going through and how they overcome those challenges. Join us next week for another entrepreneur and another story.